Hey, Archie, it's that time of year. I can't stand it. We have to prepare our taxes. Is there anything I can do to make this just a little easier?
Oh, Rob, I think so. I've got some ideas for you. I'm Archie Hoxton.
And I'm Rob Hoxton.
And this is Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. Welcome back to the Last Paycheck Podcast, sponsored by Hoxton Planning and Management. We're your hosts, CFP professionals Archie Hoxton and Rob Hoxton. And today, we're going to talk about a timely topic, and that is tax season and getting ready for it. What do you need to be thinking about? What do you need to be doing? And how do you make sure that it's as stress-free and simple as possible? Yeah, it's one of these times of year that, we get a little bit busier. Of course, any CPA friends get way busier, and it's just kind of one of those big giant chores that we all have to do.
The only thing that makes this time of year more gloomy, dreary, and yucky is getting your stuff together for taxes. I swear I hate it. But you know what? If we had to do this in June, how much harder would it be to take the day or however long it takes, a half a day on a Saturday to get all that stuff together?
Oh, it would be awful.
It'd be a lot harder.
I'd rather be sitting here thinking, oh, it's, freezing rain outside. It's gross. I'm going to be in here anyway. I might as well just do my taxes.
Yeah. So, and if you're in Florida or Arizona, this actually doesn't really apply to you. But if you're in West Virginia or the Mid-Atlantic or Indiana or any place like that, at least you've got something to do on a Saturday that keeps you inside.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say one of the first things that you have to do when you're getting ready for tax season is figuring out how you're going to do your taxes or who's going to do your taxes. Usually there are a few options. You've got the people that like to self-prepare. They do it themselves with no assistance from anyone else.
But if who is not you, right? I'm going to kind of channel Dr. Zeus a little bit.
Yeah.
So
if who is not you,
you better get to him fast, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a shortage of tax preparers. There's a shortage of CPAs.
Yeah.
At least in the U.S.
Yeah. And because you've got, on the one end of the spectrum, you've got the self-preparers. On the other, you've got the CPAs, which there aren't enough of. And they're extremely busy. And then maybe in the middle, you've got sort of like the online preparation tools like TurboTax and Tax Act and services like that. Those are designed, you can be pretty last minute with those, or if you're going to do it yourself. But I think it's a great point. We usually recommend working with a professional, especially if you have any kind of complexity in your financial situation. But you got to get on those guys pretty early.
Archie, I had a business coach years ago, almost 30 years ago, and he took us through this exercise. He said, I want you to list out all the things that you do, and I want you to take one thing, maybe two things that are the things you hate the most.
Yeah.
I want you to write them down on a piece of paper. Take that piece of paper and tear it up into little bits and never do those things again. And there were two things for me. One was preparing my own taxes, and the other was balancing my checkbook. And you know what? I have lived a very joyful life not doing either one of those things.
Yeah.
So I pay a CPA. My tax return is a little more complicated because we own business and all that kind of stuff. But even if it's fairly simple, the amount of joy that you can get of having somebody else do it. And there are other real benefits, of course, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But not doing it yourself is, I guess it's one of those guilty luxuries that some people get manicures and pedicures. I don't. I just pay somebody to do my taxes.
Yeah. Well, and I have a similar approach. I just, I feel like as financial planners, we know enough about the tax code to know how much we don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
And how specialized a skill set that a really good CPA has. And if you have, like I said, if you have some complexity, bringing them in to avoid making mistakes that cost you a lot more later than paying the person to do the taxes initially. missing opportunities, because there are kind of some opportunities that can be done when for saving money that are done through the filing process. The CPA, they will file it in the best way that they can. You don't want to miss opportunities. You don't want to make mistakes. And then, another thing that's great about them is they often have like a useful inventory and checklist or questionnaire that they'll give to you that you go through, and that's the first thing you do.
Right. Every year I do that, and I always realize that I have forgotten things.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I have forgotten to do things. And we should mention that it's not just CPAs that do tax returns. Other people do tax returns.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Enrolled agents and CPAs can actually represent you before the IRS in the event of an audit.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I don't really want to do my own stuff, because I don't really feel like I would do very well in front of an audit. And I have been audited once, and it was for 3 years of business and personal returns. And I spent some money on the professional to represent me. I spent that money. It was more than $1,000. It was a few $1,000s that I spent. It's been years ago. And at the end of the day, I didn't actually owe the IRS any more money. They actually owed me $350. So on one hand, I was delighted that the CPA that represented me found this additional money that the IRS owed me. But I was a little bit resentful that I had to stop what I was doing for long enough to answer to the IRS, pay a professional to represent me, and they were wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you were to have to go to court, you probably wouldn't represent yourself. You would hire a lawyer. It's a similar idea. You want someone with very highly specialized expertise to go and represent you if you're going to be dealing with, especially when there's money on the line.
But if you go to court in this country, there's a presumption of innocence.
Yeah.
You are innocent until proven guilty. If you go before the IRS, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
You are presumed to be guilty, and then you have to prove that you're innocent.
Right. Which is that's,
I would get myself in trouble because
I'd
probably run my mouth and get myself in trouble. That's why I have a professional that would represent me. So
that would be one important consideration when you're getting ready. The other thing is, when saving money on your taxes over the course of your life doesn't happen necessarily just during tax season. It's decisions and planning that you do all throughout the year. So make sure that, as you're getting ready for tax season in any given year, that you're doing your planning early before kind of tax season starts, before the end of the year, so that you still have time to make those decisions that have the greatest impact. And what do I mean by that? The decisions like, should I contribute to a pre-tax IRA or to a Roth IRA? That's going to have immediate effects on that year's taxes. And that's just one example.
Right. And if you're working with a financial planner, hopefully you're getting that advice as well.
Right. So it's a joint project between, in an ideal world, your tax advisor and your financial planner.
That's a great point. And it is also interesting, we mentioned that there seems to be a shortage of certainly CPAs out there. And because there's a shortage, most of these guys that we run into, guys and gals that we run into at tax time, they're just trying to get the returns out the door. So if you wait till the last minute, as you're talking about, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of advice on ways to reduce your taxes. First of all, the year is already passed.
Yeah.
Right. Anything that you do right now, aside from making an IRA contribution, or maybe a few other things, won't impact what you owe in taxes for 2024. But because they're so busy, you may not be getting a whole lot of great advice along the way, and people are looking for that. So you got to get the right CPA. We work with CPAs here at Hoxton Planning and Management that are really great. They're really proactive. They help their clients work with us to save on taxes and sort of optimize their tax situation.
Yeah.
But not all of them do it.
Yeah. And it's important. A financial planner and a CPA are sort of often like a yin and a yang in your financial life. A financial planner is often thinking, how do you save taxes over the course of your entire life? A CPA is often thinking, how do we prepare your return in such a way that you save taxes this year? How do we make decisions to save taxes this year? So when you have these two different levels of areas of expertise working together, you get this awesome combination of, balancing saving now versus saving over your life.
So as we get closer to the April 15th filing deadline, Archie, the first thing that people need to do, as you were mentioning, is figure out whether they're going to hire somebody to help them.
Yeah.
If they're going to do that, they need to get on the horn with that person right away.
Yeah.
Because those people are filling up.
Yeah. They often have deadlines for working together. And they definitely are going to have some deadlines for getting information to them. So once you establish that relationship, it's time to start taking inventory. And if they have a questionnaire, or if you're not working with someone, make a list of all of the accounts that you have and all of the institutions where they are, because there's going to be documents that you're going to need for most of those.
Yeah. And we've noticed that the traditional custodians that might house your investments, there's a big push to go to digital reporting rather than sending you a paper 1099.
Yeah.
For instance, tax forms. They may send you an email which could get caught up in your spam filter that says, hey, your 1099 is now available.
Yeah.
And you could completely miss that. Right. Now, if you've been working with the same tax preparer for years, they're going to have in their software, they're going to have, oh yeah, well, Archie has a Roth IRA, or Archie has a taxable account, and he didn't send me a 1099 for that. I better ask him where it is.
Right.
But you have to be vigilant, because your custodian may not be sending that in the mail to you anymore.
I would say, as a general rule, don't count on the institutions to make sure you've got the documents. It's your responsibility to make sure you've got the documents. So make a list. As you gather the document, submit it to your CPA or to TurboTax or whoever, check it off, right? And just keep it really simple so you don't miss anything. Also take an inventory of life changes that you've had. I mean, you may have,
did you have a baby?
Or got married,
built a
or
house,
got divorced, built a house, bought a house,
sold a house,
sold investments. There's all kinds of life events that can happen that trigger some sort of change in your
got married, got divorced.
Yeah.
It's just, there's tons of them.
There's so many. So think back through the year and what you've done. If you move to a new state, that means you might, partway through the year, maybe you might have to file multiple state tax returns. So that's important to keep in mind as well. Maybe you got a windfall, right? Maybe, there was some sort of event that you got this big lump sum of money, or you won the lottery.
Or you bet big on the Eagles.
Or that. Yeah. So I think that going through and taking this inventory of accounts and life changes, and make sure, W-2s, if you get a W-2 from your employer, and if you change jobs, you're going to have multiple W-2s. So have a list and go through and check it off and make sure you've got everything. Because you don't want to have a situation where, like, oh, I forgot this thing, and then you got to go back and we have to file an amended return. It's more trouble, more hassle, and potentially more cost.
Yeah. So you get all your stuff to the CPA, the tax preparer, if that's what you're doing, and they prepare the tax return and they send it to you. Maybe they send it to you electronically The temptation is to just sign it, file it electronically, and wait for your refund if you're due a refund. But we should caution you, you have got to read that tax return, go through it line by line to make sure it is correct.
Yeah.
And not only you, but your spouse, right? If you're married, filing jointly, both of you are responsible for that return. And if you file a fraudulent tax return, even if it wasn't intentional on your part, you could answer for that. And that's a very stressful thing to have to endure. So make sure that when that return comes back to you, before you just file it, that you review it and make sure it's accurate.
Absolutely. Always review it. Because it also might mean that there was, a minor mistake. Here's an interesting example. Let's say you change jobs. You have a 401k, you roll it over. You roll that to an IRA. It's a non-taxable event. Maybe you're working with somebody new and you didn't mention that, or someone that's new to you and you didn't mention that, and they get the 1099-R from the 401k company and they see, oh, there was a withdrawal from this. And so it's regarded as a taxable withdrawal when really it was a rollover. You may end up owing a lot more taxes, and maybe it's not a huge amount, but either way, that's really important.
Super important.
That it's made clear. And there's a lot of companies that aren't sending out the form 5498, which shows that's sort of the other side. You have the 1099-R, that's from the 401k, and then you have the 5498 from the IRA. It's showing, oh, this was a rollover, not taxable. A lot of companies aren't sending those out in time for taxes.
Fidelity is sending them in May.
Yeah.
After the filing deadline.
So you have to let your preparer know that was not taxable. It was a rollover.
Same is true for charitable contributions that you make directly from your IRA.
Yeah.
If your tax preparer doesn't know that those funds went to a qualified charity, then you may end up having to, they may file the return and you end up paying taxes. So that's really important. Another thing is, if you feel pinched for time, you don't have to actually file the return by April 15th. Now, you got to pay your expected taxes, but you can wait and actually file the return as late as October 15th of this year. If you're filing individually, if it's a corporate return, it's I think it's September or it's October 15th. If it's an S corp or a partnership, I think it's September 15th for those extended deadlines. So try to get it in by April 15th, but if you can't, don't feel the pressure to sign something before you review it.
Yeah. You just have to, file an extended return or an extension, and then you have to pay. That's the key.
Yeah.
You have to pay. If you wait to file, that's okay. You have to pay.
Now, the amount that you pay may end up being different than what the amount that you actually owe, and you may figure that out during the extension period, but you got to make an effort to pay that. So,
yeah. Well, there's more to talk about there. There's lots to prepare for, but just remember, filing it is your responsibility. Getting all of the information you need is your responsibility. So be really organized, have a checklist, maybe work with a professional if that's right for you. But anyway, maybe we'll do another episode on this down the road. But yeah, I think that's about all the time we have for today. So we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you liked it, leave us a comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share it with your family and friends, and we'll hope to see you next time.
You've been watching Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. If you like this show, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Last Paycheck is available anywhere you get your podcasts.